All right, I want to talk about the hello storytellers, storytelling right. I want to talk about Inquisition, witch trials, and how Christianity today is being persecuted, and yet the Christianity and the church are the force for good in the world, and yet we are always the target of evil. Remember, I always say this about evil. The pure philosophy of evil is whenever they ask you, whenever they bring up things about Democrats like the party switch, always say to them, tell me, would evil ever apologize for evil? Pure evil, would it ever apologize for its evil? The answer is no, it would not. So you would never hear a Democrat apologize for slavery or two-thirds two-thirds of vote for slaves, or counting slaves as vote for voting methods, or because they use that as well. They use all this stuff that the Democrat lynching, all this stuff the Democrats did, the KKK, all that stuff, white supremacy, all this stuff they pushed, they'll never apologize for it. The only thing they'll do, because it's pure evil, is blame the good, the Republican Party, who fought all that. You know, the Republican Party actually had in its charters for many of those decades to stop lynching, and the Democrats never had that. The Democrats, if you read their charters back in the day, like after World War, after Civil War, they're constantly blaming Republicans for stuff, and the Republicans are saying, "Please stop. We need to legalize lynching, literally, because 5,000, 6,000 were lynched in the South." You could say, "Oh, blacks were lynched." That is not 100% true. That is not 100% true. 1,500 were white Republicans. All, by the way, if you say Republicans were lynched in the South, that is 100% true. They did not lynch blacks who fell in line with the Democrat Party, who did what the Democrat Party said. They lynched Republican officiates, the ones that were trying to organize Republican voting in the South. I'm totally going off tangent here, but I don't care. Remember, the Democrats ruled the South with an iron fist from like 1880, after the Union left, 1880 to about 2000. So over 100 years, the Republicans could not get in there because they were getting lynched. And now the Democrats are screaming about lynching. Pure evil. Pure evil. They executed 6,000 Republicans in the South. Lynching. And lynching is a torture. It's a huge, dark torture, horrific, with a bunch of hoods all around you, wanting you dead in a horrible, horrible way. Strapped, hung to a tree, whatever. And I feel, a lot of blacks, a lot of whites, all Republican, trying to bring in freedom to the South for all the rest. Okay, the force for good. Now, obviously, and the Democrats use the church. That they were evil. They have no problem using the Bible. Satan has no problem using the Word of God in his manipulation, for sure. But you'll know them by their fruits. If you're going to lynch someone, you are not of God. You're not of Jesus. You're not. You're not the one. You're not vengeance. A Christian is not a man of vengeance. We do not go around killing people for God. We don't have to. We're not supposed to. That's why people are like, why, when people blaspheme Jesus all the time, well, they're like Andrew Tate was all bug, the French, the Summer Olympics, they blaspheme obviously God and Jesus Christ and Last Supper. Why are Christians, attacking and bombing and terrorizing? Because we don't need to. We know the end for them, and God said we don't need to kill for Him. We don't need. We're not vengeance for Him. It's in the Bible. He says it a couple times. God is vengeance. Do not active vengeance on. We certainly want to enforce laws and a modicum of morality, of behavior, but we don't have to go around terrorizing and killing and executing people and honor killing and jihading or anything. Don't have to do it because we know who's going to do it. Okay, I want to get to this lynching, Inquisition and witch trials. You guys made me go off on a tangent. It's terrible. Stop doing that. Okay. Oh man, I changed my thing a little bit. Okay. Boom. This video, really, really good video. This guy, Into the Shadows, the Deadly History of Spanish Inquisition. I actually liked this video. I was kind of, suspicious. He did a very good. This is the weird. He's exaggerating here to give you a point, but he did a very, this guy did a very good kind of even keeled thing about the Inquisition. It's really nice, and I'm all over the place with my research and my projects and stuff. So I really appreciate that he kind of made it all concise. I guess this is what he does or something with different aspects of history. So I just want to sum up a couple things that he said, and then at the end where I think he went woke a little bit and ridiculous. He really did a fair job of explaining the Inquisition, and I really liked his overview of it all. Some interesting points were that there was only about 40 to 50 agents in Spain during any time, so there wasn't that many. When they went to go investigate accusations, they would go to the nearest city, claim their presence, let everybody know, including the local clergy and the local officials, and they would work with them, and then they would give a period of grace so that anyone that would want to come and talk to them before they started their investigation could, and then fess up stuff, and then they could, and they would get immunity or whatever. They would not be executed or anything. And then they would do things that were trial based, court investigated trial, witnesses, cross witnesses, plaintiffs, defendants, all of that. It was not, you know what I mean? So this is so ridiculous how the Spanish Inquisition and the witch trials are like used today as like a mocking Scott. I mean, it's not ridiculous. It totally makes sense. But for us Christians to be ashamed of it is ridiculous. That's the part. That's where I'm getting at. We should not be. I'm so grateful that there was an Inquisition in Spain and across Europe, and the witch trials and the Crusades. I am grateful. I'm grateful that men stood up and decided we are going to confront evil. Now, the main focus of the Spanish Inquisition was not even witches. They only had a few that they even did. The most of it was about the Jews and the Muslims because of the Reconquista. The Reconquista was horrific, terrorizing. It took the Christians and the Catholics generations to realize how devious Islam was. Now, the Jews were caught in the middle, and here's the thing: the thing about the Jews is they came in with the Muslims. So, and remember, the Jews were pretty much slaves of the Muslims. They were the accountants, or they were they were the hardworking aspect of the Muslims. The Muslims are not hardworking. They don't believe in hard work. I mean, I'm saying the overall religion and philosophy and belief of it. The only people that believe in hard work as a glory to God are Jews and Christians. So anyway, Muslims had Jews in there because the Jews believed in hard work. They, that's, you can see that today in Jews and in Israel and all that. And same with us Christians. We like to work. We believe in work. We don't believe in slavery. So, and Islam believes in slavery. So they enslaved the Jews and then used them. Anyway, so that's the thing about the Jews. They were stuck in the middle of this, but they were obviously stuck again, with Islam forcing them to do what they did. To serve them. So the Christians it took forever for them to realize this, and as they were defeating them, they realized that there was a terror war, and so they had to have an anti-terror group, and they had to also civilize the anti-terror, opposition to the terror. And remember, it only takes a couple of Muslims to open the gate late at night for the Muslims to sneak in and they destroy a city. So that was the thing that they had to do. They had to really clean up who was around, and the Muslims had a choice to leave. They wanted them to leave because they were horrible, and so that was the whole thing about the Inquisition. And so now here we are just screaming about the Inquisition. And then the other problem is that the Protestants of the day and of today also made the Spanish Inquisition and any Catholic endeavor. They used it and criticized it and used it in a mocking, scoffing, and an attack way as well. So we Protestants are sort of to blame for that as well. I am declaring an alliance today, personally anyway, with the Catholics, with the Orthodox. I'm declaring we should call ourselves the Triad, not the Holy Trinity. We're not the Holy Trinity. We're not the Trinity. We're the Triad. We're that rebellious, organized crime, scary alliance to fight against the one world government that's happening right now with paganism and Marxism and all the other atheism and secularism and humanism and all that crap. We should call ourselves the Triad. And I would love to have an Orthodox Catholic and a good Protestant church on every corner. Although the Catholics need to work on their Pope. That guy's whacked. So there's that. But the Inquisition was really a very careful thing. And also, and I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm going to go through some more numbers, but the Inquisition itself was what, 400 years? 2,000 executed. 2,000. So if you divide that, that's like, let's look at that right now. 2,000 over 300 years is what? 2,000 divided by 300 is 6 per year. They investigated a lot of people, but the vast majority either converted or gave up or whatever, or confessed and then said they're sorry, and then they had to do penance, all that. So the very few were actually executed, and very few were executed in any horrible way. It even describes how they did torture. They did not, the whole medieval torture is a lie. The whole medieval torture is used to get people into these torture museums, and in the 18th, 19th century, they started creating all these torture devices that, to claim they were from the Dark Ages. It's like, that was like their horror films. They were doing these horror films. Marquis de Sade, they were just doing all these horror film type things, because that's what pagans love, is gore. And and since Christians legalized gladiators, the gladiator arena, they had to come up with something else for their desire for blood, their sanguinarity and desire. So the whole torture thing was totally ridiculous. Now he does describe three methods of torture they used. Waterboarding, the rack, and it was meant to be like painful but not injurious, to cause real injury. And it was interesting too. They had a lot of rules they had to follow. So everything was well documented. So it's not like it's not like an Islamic terror where they just did horrific things, or Marxist terror where they just did horrific things. It was very documented. And that's another thing about it, is that it's so easy for pagans to attack us, because we actually document what we do, as opposed to true evil, which never documents what it does, right? It just does it and gets away with it, and they never go after it. So very interesting stuff. Really like this. You and I got to be much. I want to do an Inquisition RPG. Like where you're part of the Inquisition. You go after evil, and make it all fantastical too, and dark and grim. I mean, at some point I want to do that. But my Gothic RPG will have the Inquisition in it for sure, as heroes, as people who confront evil. Because the people they were confronting were they were doing two things. They were trying to calm down the mob who was attacking these accused, and then they were trying to protect the accused, to make sure that they weren't being falsely accused, to get their story, and then get the plaintiff's story. And they were, remember, the plaintiff, whoever was accusing him, was also on trial. So it wasn't like they just assumed that person was evil. And you definitely want inquisitors, because you want people to come from the outside, because people locally are all hating each other, and all having infighting. And that's actually, let me move over to the Salem witch trials. There's some, where did I found some videos on the Salem witch trials. I'll get to this here in a sec. Oh gosh, where's the witch trial one? Here it is. Okay. So in the Salem witch trials, they weren't burned at the stake. There was not a history of witch hunting, in the Puritan period. That was just very rare, and blah, blah, blah. I'm just going through real quick. There was no flow test or anything like that. There was no hallucinations from rotten wheat. What actually happened is, they believe two things. There was a war going on, King Philip's War, in the 1670s, and a lot of displaced refugee children. So they were having a lot of issues with children, and a lot of them came to this city. So there was a bunch of messed up kids and stuff living there, and they had to deal with that. And there was persecution going on, and there was a big family feud as well. There was definitely a big family feud of sort of poor farming people arguing with the rich, and also the other thing, the trials mainly targeted women, but it was women who accused of the women most. So there's a lot of fighting. Also, I believe. Yeah, 300 people were accused. Wow, the vast majority were women. The trials only lasted 1 year, but also it says here that they did not follow protocol. They broke protocol. Anyway, so like they didn't even use, they were supposed to use outside counsel and blah, 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 but they said it was all local, and it was all kind of like crime ridden and stuff. So it was, a family feud type thing. And you know how those are. Anyway, that's just something minor, but the Salem witch trials keeps coming up as this horrific thing, but it was very like chaotic, and it just happened, and during a time when whatever. So it's just such a minor issue, but yet they use it over and over to bludgeon us, like we're to be ashamed to be a Christian, and it's ridiculous, because plenty of non-Christians in a Christian culture, plenty of non-Christians have no problem pretending they're Christian, or lying about it, and then going about their non-Christian way. You will know them by their fruits. Okay, I want to get back to the witches though. How many were executed? So, this is the first. I'm going to get to that. Okay, so the English heritage. How many were executed? Why can't I move? Okay, they said witches were burned at the stake. Not that often, but I know that a lot of Christian martyrs were burned at the stake. Anyway, and they claim like millions died during the witch trials and witch persecutions. No, only about 30 to 60,000 people were executed in the whole of the main area of witchcraft persecutions, which lasted from 1427, and the last one was in 1782. Obviously, there was a height of it, and then that height was in Germany, especially after the Hammer of Witches book that came out, which I have, which is fascinating, and everything it's asking, we see today. It's how, one of the questions is, how does it get the men to get castrated to then act like a woman? How do they get them to do that? That's one of their questions the witches did. The witches got the men to basically become effeminate and get castrated and act like a woman. They're like, how do they get them to do that? That is crazy. That is nuts. And it was going on in such a big way. And how did they get the women to give up their children as sacrifice? That was what was going on. The 9 million witches died. Okay, so no, only about 30, 50. Okay, so let's just say 50,000 over 300 years. 50,000 divided by 300. This is across Europe. So 166 per year were executed. This is across Europe. Okay, so 166 per year. That's across Europe. Okay, let's put it in context. Now, was it all fair and balanced? No, but it was a trial. You had a chance. Only 25% of those tried across Europe were found guilty and executed. Now, remember this. You could say, I'm sorry. You could say, I repent, and I'm not going to do that and that again. So you would not be executed. Only those who are deceiving and saying they're going to do it again, or they're innocent of it. Okay, now if they keep saying they're innocent of it and yet they're guilty or whatever, or maybe they are innocent of it, you don't know. You have to work with what you got. And remember, it's a trial. They don't just go out and kill people. They don't just round them up and kill them. There was an investigation. They had witnesses, plaintiffs, defendants, all this. Countered, everything. Millions of innocent people were rounded up on a suspicion of witchcraft. The total number of people tried for witchcraft in England throughout the period of persecution was no more than 2,000. So in some countries, it was pretty minor. I mean, the biggest being Germany. That's where the Hammer of Witches was. But it was also very prevalent there too. Look at the way Germany's been throughout the years. This is really good. Most judges and many jurymen were highly skeptical about the existence of magical powers, seeing the whole thing as a huge con trick by fraudsters. And this, I bet you, the huge con trick by fraudsters could go either way. It could go through the witches were fraudsters, or the people accusing them were fraudsters. So there's plenty of that going around. Many others knew that old women could be persecuted by their neighbors for no other reason other than they weren't very attractive. Or maybe they were just mean. When you get older, you get kind of bitter. And so then someone will accuse you of being a witch and it just gets out of hand. So there was that. That's why the Inquisition came into play in the witch trials, because they're trying to stop people from accusing of being witches and then the local mob coming in and killing them. All four of the major Christian denominations, the Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Calvinist, and Anglican churches, well, to me, Roman Catholic is one, Lutheran, Calvinist, and Anglican are Protestants, so that's one. Persecuted witches to some degree. In the Eastern Christian Orthodox, is their churches carried it. So this is the triad. Churches carried out almost no witch hunting. The Orthodox did. Okay, in England, Scotland, in Scandinavia, and Geneva, which trials were carried out by Protestant states, the Spanish Inquisition executed only 2 witches in total. So the Spanish Inquisition obviously was focused on the Islamic terror. Gee, I wonder if any of you know anything about Islamic terror. King James I was terrified of witches and responsible for their hunting and execution. Because in England it was pretty minor. And let me just pass that up. Witch hunting was really women hunting, since most witches were women. In England, the majority of those accused were women. In other countries, including some of the Scandinavian countries, men were in a slight majority. It was primarily women. I'm sure men were part of it, and men are always the leaders on witches. I'm going to say that right now. Men are always leaders over witches. Witches think they're like, I'm a witch. I'm an independent woman. Yeah, right. Okay, witches were really goddess worshipping herbalist midwives. Nobody was a goddess worshipping during the period of witch hunts. or if they were, they left no trace in historical records. So if they did, they would have said so, because they would have fessed up, you know, especially the ones that are executed, where it's, I did this, I did that. Anyway, despite the beliefs of lawyers and historians and politicians, there was no real pagan witchcraft. So he mentions all these politicians, historians who bring up this stuff, like Heinrich Himmler. So a lot of people would bring this stuff up just for their own agenda, and of course people will believe it. But you got to look at the actual documents, the historical records. There was some residual paganism in very few trials. So the vast majority of it was Satanism, or just mocking and scoffing Christianity. The idea that those accused of witchcraft were midwives or herbalists, and especially that they were midwives possessed of feminine expertise that threatened male authority, is a myth. Midwives were rarely accused. Instead, they were more likely to work side by side with the accusers to help them to identify witch marks. So Diane Perkins is professor of English literature at Cable College, University of Oxford. So I'm going to, what I am going to say is, I'm not saying she's 100% accurate on all this stuff, but I agree with most of this as far as what she's summing up here. I mean, if you just look at today, Christians don't go after feminists. We go after abortion. We go after drugs. We go after the fruits of it. When you have some crazy ideas, we tend to like roll our eyes at it. But if you're actually doing something with the crazy ideas that's something bad. Here is, I should put this in a little bit better order. Okay. Okay, so let me close this one. The witch. Okay, so here, hanging, drowning, burning. Okay, Salem witch trials, European witch trials, English witch trials, witchcraft acts. So about 40, 50,000, whatever, 30,000, 50,000, whatever. Over 300 to 400 year period. Okay, so that's a long time, and it's just here and there, dotted around. So it wasn't like this huge genocide of people. It was just part of the criminal system, is what it sounds like to me. Plenty of other people getting executed for other reasons. Okay, now I wanted to look up a list maybe of different ones, and I looked up this one, and I found it, through my meanderings. Narbona Dekal on Wikipedia here, how she was accused and killed of being a witch. And in the list I found, she was a herbalist. I'm like, oh, okay, so I go look that up. Well, it turns out that her neighbors accused her of killing, poisoning a wife, killed his daughter, testified of a neighbor's, she had, bewitched the accuser so she could not have children. So this whole thing was the Inquisitors looking at this woman, gathering up a bunch of women in this period, but having local neighbors accusing them, and then investigating that before they would make their final thing. And it turns out she's mocking and scoffing Christianity, and then claiming some sort of weird healing. It sounds like to me, if I just try to use a common denominator, it sounds like she, delved into this and then started poisoning people. Maybe not even on purpose, thinking that all her stuff has powers, and then just ended up killing him instead of helping them, or and again, that's. And if you're not repentant of that, they got to get rid of you, because you're going to do it again. You're going to end up doing it again. So that's how witches kind of came about, was that they were just, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. People are dying. I don't care. I did it. I'm going to try it again. You know what I mean? I know I'm going all over the place, but I'm just like, dang, I keep coming across all these witch trial stuff, and I'm going to get to a point here at the end with the modern day witches. Let me just go through this now. We always hear about the witch trials. We always hear about the Inquisition in jokes, and I come across it way too often in YouTube videos, but I never come across the French Revolution, which is a humanist, atheist. We all know that for a fact. They were declaring it an atheist revolution. The American Revolution was a Christian revolution. The French Revolution was an atheist revolution. They literally tried to get rid of the church. They tried to make a 10-day calendar because they wanted to do a decimal system instead of 7, because they knew 7 was from the Bible. That did not work. This is only a few years, and they got, look at this, they got like pretty much the same much as the 300 years that the witch trials did. They executed people so quickly, they made the guillotine so they could kill them so quickly. Remember, the French Revolution was only a few years, as far as the reign of terror, and look at this here. So imagine if you're one of 15,000. That's every day. What is this? A few years? Let me see. 15,000. Let me just see. 15. I'm gonna go with the low number just to be nice. 15,000 divided by 3. Okay, That's 3 years. Let's just say divided by 24 months. No, 12 months. Jeez. What are we doing here? Let me start over. I can't. 15,000. Down. I know. I just like numbers here. Divided by, oh gosh, 15. And I'm lowballing the number here. Divided by, right? Yep. Whatever. To 15,000. What is going on here? Clear. 15,000 divided by 3. I'm not even sure if it's 3 years, but it's something like that. Divided by 12. 416 people a month. Divided by 4. Hey guys, we got to kill 104 people by the end of the week. Executing them, guillotining them. Divided by 7. And of course they had 10 days. 14 a day. 14 a day at least. You know, probably 40 this day, 30 that day. Every day within the city of Paris. I think they just had a certain areas that they just were guillotining. Every day. This sounds like the Aztecs, the Mayans. And here's what's creepy. 10 to 23,000 people died in prison without a trial. So they weren't even trying them. They were accusing them, putting them in prison, and then they rounded you up to either guillotine you or they forgot about you in the prison. You rotted in there, slowly dying, starving to death. Probably because they didn't feed you. There was no one there who gave a crap about it. And remember, they threw down priests down the wells, like threw them down alive, threw them into the well. I remember reading about that. I think Anne Coulter actually described the French Revolution. It was brutal in one of her books back in the day. So 30 to 50,000. So the same amount, but within a few years, right? Reign of Terror. This is an atheist movement. How can we never bring up French Revolution as some sort of scary thing to mock and scoff? You know, I never hear about that. How many died under Stalin, the Marxist movement, right? 2 million deaths in the Gulag. 800,000 executions, 400,000 deaths during decolonization, and 400 deaths of deportees. Whew. The number estimated 20 million or higher before the Soviet Union dissolved were executed or killed, or execution of tens of thousands of people in Mongolia. The majority of victims were Buddhists, lamas, nobility, political figures, academic figures, workers, and herders just killed, executed. Sent to gulags. Oh, every now and then I come across horrific, pathetic stories of being in a gulag and dying there. You know, up in Siberia or whatever. And we just don't even bring it up. We don't bring it up as a joke or part of a thing or whatever. Always the witch trials, always the Inquisition. Never anything about what the Marxists do, what the atheists do, what the pagans do. Mao Zedong and the Chinese, 40 to 80 million victims due to starvation, persecution, prison labor, mass executions, and his government is described as totalitarian. Marxist. Every Marxist government is totalitarian. You know, I mean, no one brings up Mao at all. No one. Okay, then the Nazi genocide, all right? 21 million victims because of the Nazi thing. And the National Socialist. And by the way, their national is all about conquering and fascism and being above others. The nationalism in a conservative is about separate states, the separation of powers, nation states, as in the Bible. We believe that everyone should have their own nation. Their nationalism is about federalizing and centralizing a Marxist. So their nationalist is about everything being nationalized. Ours is about nations. Theirs is about nationalizing everything. The companies, the orphanages, the hospital, the churches, socialism basically. Our nationalism is about having different nation states so that we all have different power, separated powers, and not being one big global horrible thing. So all of these, and obviously they just equate Nazis with the far right, which is ridiculous. Far right are Amish, okay? The far right are Amish. Another one is the Arab Muslim slave trade, which happened starting in the 7th century. It did not end until 1960 when the British white colonizers told the Saudi Arabians to stop. If they want us to get their oil, they need to stop having public slave auctions right out there. Okay, right here. Let me get the numbers here. I have the numbers here. According to the work of some historians, the Arab slave trade affected more than 17 million people 17 million. In the Saharan region alone, more than 9 million African captives were deported and 2 million died on the roads, at least. Now, I think the total slaves taken to the Americas was like north and south was like 1 million or 1.5 million, something like that. But this was like 17 million, 9 million were deported, and 2 million died on the roads. So we know that a ton. And guess what? How many black people are left in the Middle East? They brutally castrated them, and scimitar, and if you survived, you became appalling violence, castration, and rape. The Arab slave trade was characterized by appalling violence, castration, and rape. The men were systematically castrated to prevent them from producing and becoming stock. This inhuman practice resulted in high death rates. 6 out of 10 people were mutilated, died from their wounds in castration centers. The Arab trade slave also targeted African women and girls who were captured and deported for use as sex slaves until they died. You're a sex slave until you die doing that. We never talk about the Arab sex trade as a mocking, fun, jokey, comedian thing. We just talk about the 2,000 that were executed in the Spanish Inquisition, and only a few were witches. We talk about, the Crusades, which is never a genocide. It was always a declared war. It was never a genocide the way terrorism is, the way the Islamic conquest of 2/3 of Christendom. All right, let me go to now today. The witch vote. I should have done this in a separate video, whatever. So this is the New York's political witches will cast spells for cast ballots at village Halloween parade. So the witches are coming out. They're having a renaissance. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, except that we need to bring back the witch trials. Why do I say that like they need to be executed? No, I don't think they need to be executed. I think that we should not be allowing this to be out there, because witches is a declaration of, I'm going to manipulate you. I'm going to use magic on you. I'm going to control you. Look at that. They got to use pageantry. They got to sell themselves with sex, even as they're getting older and weirder. They got to use all kinds of costumes and makeup and silliness like this to sell themselves, because that's what paganism and witches is about. And we as Christians need to expose them. We need to expose them. I gotta stop looking at this. I gotta close this. I'm done with this. Okay, let me close this. It's right in my face. Okay. So we need to expose the witches and how they're using mocking and scoffing of the witch trials, the Inquisition, to shame us. And yet the church is the force for good in the world, and the church right now is receding, retreating, and look what's happening. Look what's happening. Child sex trafficking is huge now. Child trafficking is huge. Muslims are doing it. They're doing it in our own countries, right? The gang rape stuff is happening, and our governments are supporting it. Why? Because there's no church fighting our government. There's no church confronting the leaders. When the church confronts the leaders, they shape up. Do you want a land where the Democrats rule everything and control everything and they have no fear? Or do you want a land where Democrats run everything, control everything, but they have fear of the church? They have fear of us, we the people? And the only way they're going to have fear of us is if some of them are Republicans in there, and we can actually vote in Republicans. And sadly, though, that's not going to happen unless you and I make the church stronger, and we confront sin everywhere, sin in the halls of governance, and sin on the streets, and sin with these witches, trying to sell themselves and sell their spells as a legit thing. It is not legit. It is. We need to rebuke it. It is pathetic. We need to rebuke it. And we need to be churchmen and say this stuff. Say it out loud. The Satanists are now having an abortion, trying to have abortion as a religious right. Satanism is not a religion, and you and I need to rebuke it. It is not a religion. Satanism is it's okay. If that's a religion, right? Here's my thing. If that's a religion, what is the evil religion of Islam? Like, what is Islam's really evil? Is it mock Allah religion? Is it mock and burn the Quran religion, whatever it is that a legit religion then? You got to ask them that, because what if there's people that want to be mock Allah religion? Is that, you know, like Satanism is mock Christ, mock God. Is there, because if they're saying Satan is a religion, which it isn't, it's just a mocking of Christianity, what is it that they want to do? Is there an mocking Islam religion that we can create then, so that we can just have a religion that mocks Islam openly in the public and in the hall of governance, where they can have a display that mocks Islam? You know, is there a mocking atheist thing? I gotta think of some, mock Darwin, mock, you know, whatever it is. Is there that type of thing? Could we do that? Is there that kind of a religion that we can have? Anyway, so we have to rebuke them. We have to rebuke them wherever they are, and bring the church back. Because without it, we're going to have a lot of this stuff, a lot of lying, deception, destruction, corruption. We're always going to have it. The church is just here. Jesus set up the church so that we could fight back in that sense, organized, and keep the peace and subdue evil, you know, for our own sake, really, for the sake of civilization. All right, that's my rant today. Another babbling, long rant. Yeah, in the game of life, roll holy dice. I think I'm going to do a fun video now.